when you're signing up for the show, you're working with promoters, you're working with the bar owners or venue, managers and things like that. Like, talk to me a little bit about the business side of, booking a show. Like, do they reach out to you, right? And especially, let's say if you're up and coming, you may not have your own agent or anything like that. So I kind of want to learn a little bit more about like the business aspects of going on to a live performance.
In terms of the business aspects, it will definitely vary from individual to individual. I'm blessed to have, built a small network of people who like are with orgs who need like who want to book my kind of energy, my kind of music for their events, and I got to know these people through like peers, like other musicians and everything like that. So a big part of it, I think, is if the question is like how do you find these opportunities, I think it's going to events, going to live shows, and getting to know people, and then introducing yourself, right? Like putting yourself out there, like, oh, like, do you guys host events at this bar, like this bar or shop regularly? Like, is there like a schedule? And then from there you can just start an email thread with them. um in terms of actually figuring out the business, once you solidify like a location you want to play at, I think that's really just a matter of talking to the right people, or talking to the owner of the bar or the event manager. And I think a big importance is asking questions that are kind of on a need to be basis before you even like sign on, like sign the dotted line to say, all right, we're doing this date, right? Like a big things you could ask are like, what times can we perform? How many, how many people, like how many heads, like people like, fit in this venue, or like is an average night at this bar in general or at this venue in general. Um, what's your sound like? I think the sound system thing is immensely important, because not all venues have like a PA system that they use for announcing things that could also be like used for music purposes. Like figuring out like what amps will I need to bring, what cables, what would be best for this venue. Find those things out early on, you know. Otherwise, you'll go to the venue, they don't have the amp you're looking for. Now you're in a scramble situation, right? Like, um, yeah. And then from there, in terms of other things like the deal you work with them, in terms of, payment for the performance, or like incentive for folks to come through, like that's all details and boilerplate that will vary from like I guess vary from show to show.
What are some common, I guess, boilerplate revenue structures that you see as an artist? And then are there any like kind of red flags, like when you notice like, hey, this is not going the way that I thought it was going to go, or you have disagreements in terms of the terms and whatnot? Like, what are those things that people also that are performers also kind of need to watch out for?
In terms of watching out for things, the main thing I could think about is just like communication. Like if the bar owner or the venue owner or the org owner isn't kind of communicative about stuff that needs to happen, and stuff that like explicitly, like if they say stuff like, oh, we'll make it work, or oh, we'll figure something out, like those are those are situations where you as the person who's trying to be like perform at the venue, you most likely got to feel it out within yourself. Like, am I okay with this? If your goal is expression, if your goal is to perform your pieces in like a space with a roof over the head and everything like that, and that's the goal, like that's the primary goal over like making money or getting exposure, or networking to folks who are coming to the show, then sure, I don't think that's a red flag. I think it's more so a thing that like you roll with the wind at that venue. But if you have any semblance of goal to make this like a thing that leads to other things, like having good professional footage of this show, getting ticket sale revenue from the show, merch sales, you know, using this as leverage to book future shows. I would highly suggest that you be very direct with what you are looking for, and you be very direct with asking them what are they looking for or what they can provide. Some venues, yeah, part of it will go to performers, part of it will go to the bartending staff and to the food staff. Orgs, they might have a budget, in which case, you do you talk and you figure it out, figure out what works for everybody. But yeah, other red flags, I can't really think of any. I think the main bad performances I've had involve situations where somebody else, not myself, booked the show, and they did not get those direct deliverable questions that I mentioned before of like what's the sound like, who's going to be there to help run tickets, or do we need to have somebody to run our own tickets? And because they weren't communicative to my friend who booked the show, and they weren't, my friend, respect to them, wasn't direct or like getting like determined to get that information, the show was definitely messy because there wasn't amplification for sound, there wasn't somebody running the tickets, like we had to make duct tape solutions, which the people who come, if they support you, they'll understand. But I think a goal is to really have that as figured out as possible, so that they don't have to worry about it and you don't have to worry about it the day of. So those would be my red flags.
Got it. I'm curious on the monetary side, are there considerations that, different up and coming artists will use to say like, you know what, like I need to get paid X amount in order for this to actually make sense or to break even, right? Like, because obviously performing is a lot of work. You're putting all of your creative energy to perform, and there's, I'm sure plenty of cases where artists are underpaid and relative to the level of their performance. So, just kind of curious if there are what factors that artists think about in terms of the monetary side of like performing. If it is like you're trying to make this kind of a professional sort of thing, or you want your side hobby to be really, really worth it.
I think a good mentality to go into it, especially if you're just starting, is that you are going to be in the red for a while. There's going to be expenses that go towards jam spaces, expenses that go towards, if you're like hiring musicians like at a certain level to like play for you or and stuff like that. All the Ubers or the driving, the gas, the food, stuff like these, I think, are all upfront costs, and there's no way to avoid them, especially if nobody knows who you are yet. Meaning, when you're booking things at first, I think, frankly, you probably need to go into it saying, like, you know what, I need to like level up, and what they can offer. Like, you can try to wiggle, and negotiate, but it's definitely I think paying of dues early on, and that also means financially. One way to think about it would also be context of the show, which is a recurring theme of this convo, which is if you got an opportunity to play for like a college showcase and they have like a assistant student board or like an org of some sort, like like an association, I think those are situations where they have like a budget, a general budget for everything entertainment related, in which case that could just be general knowledge for you to think about, to be like, okay, well, there's something that was focused on paying performers, which is good for you because, that means that maybe you can get compensated a little better. That said, if you're like booking a show at like like a bar or a venue, I think there isn't necessarily a budget for entertainment. This is more so two sort of services running at the same time, like music and then the actual bar for like entertainment purposes. They're like working hand in hand. So in those situations, you know, Go in with a healthy mentality that you're not going to be making that much, but it does help because you're building up your portfolio, like you're, you know, the this performance notches on your belt.